Yes, so welcome. We wanted to talk about like a very important thing for our organization, which is called the impact reports, right? And I think we have some amazing updates that are coming along with publishing that reports. But first of all, because not everyone might be familiar with you as a person and My First Bitcoin in general, so could you introduce yourself really quick and just say what's your role in the organization?
Absolutely. So my name is Quentin. I'm the executive director at My First Bitcoin, and I'm basically in charge of making sure that the whole team works together so that we reach our objectives and pursue our mission.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and one big part I think of that is also collecting information across departments, summarizing that and actually condensing that into what we call impact report. So for people who started to watch the video or read the blog article, could you summarize for what kind of information will the report actually include and who might be very interested in reading that report?
Absolutely. This is a great question. Let me take a step back and talk a bit about My First Bitcoin. What we're trying to achieve is just like Bitcoin is separating money from state, we're trying to separate education from state. We're trying to empower individuals so that they don't need to rely on mainstream institutions for education, for banking, for everything, so that they can be more sovereign in their lives, in their communities, etc. And so to achieve that, we're building a decentralized network of independent educators, bringing them open source, independent Bitcoin education. And basically, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build in the open. What we're doing on a continuous basis. It's a big challenge, right? Because we're doing a lot of stuff, and we're trying to show to the world what we're doing, and we could do that on a yearly basis, but we feel like we need to do more than that. So we're basically following a quarterly uh, rhythm that we adapted a little bit and that we based on our release schedule for our programs. So what we decided to do at the end of last year is to follow the same release schedule that Ubuntu uses. We release and publish an intermediary release for our programs in April and the yearly release in October. And we decided to use the same schedule to publish our impact reports. So April, June, October, and December. And so for our impact reports, we decided to follow the same schedule. So we published the programs, and a couple of weeks afterward, we published the impact report. So we have an impact report coming in a couple of weeks for April. We have an impact report coming in June, in October, and in December. And that allows us to really share what we're working on with the community so that everyone knows what we're doing. Because our mission can feel simple and obvious, but it really isn't. Because even for the Bitcoin community, we talk about separating money from state and being independent, etc. The fiat system is more than just money. It's anything that is imposed by the government. And education is a huge part of that. So if we don't separate education from the state, then we will still have a fiat system, even if we have Bitcoin, because the elites, the governing powers, will continue controlling us via our minds, if not via our money. So we need independent education, we need independent money, and the two go hand in hand. And that's why we do independent education about independent money. So that's what we do.
Okay, cool. So going back to that one question I asked, one thing is like, why do we actually do the report? And I actually remember when I joined the team in December, like when we met in El Salvador, we were having like very vivid discussions about like how do we actually measure impact, which is incredibly complex from my point of view. So I think like from every report to the next, we will also reinvent ourselves, right? The metrics, what is actually proper measurement. So there is so much brain power behind the reports that people would underestimate that, I would say. People think like, yeah, just show like the number of students and done. No, it's not.
Absolutely. It seems like for many, if not most NGOs, nonprofits, impact is measured in very quantitative numbers. And what we're trying to do here is empower people, empower communities, create sovereignty, create liberty. And this is so hard to measure because you can pump up the numbers of a student's thought, but how many individuals at the end of the day will be empowered? That's the real challenge, right? So that's why we're coming up with many, many different ways to measure impact. And we're trying to combine all of them so that it paints a better picture than just number goes up and that's it. And we're also trying to bake in testimonials and qualitative impact as well. So that's the challenge. That's why we're doing it, because it's hard, not because it's easy. And we're trying to build public trackers as well as impact reports so that the community can continuously review what we're doing, not just on a yearly basis, not just on a quarterly basis, but also at any point in time. You can go on the website and see where we're at, basically. So we have a roadmap, we have dashboards, and we're working on all of that so that we can be fully transparent with the community, which is super important, especially in the Bitcoin space.
Yeah, I full-heartedly agree with that. And the last question, because I think we skipped that. So who would be interested in reading the report? So who is that made for?
I can answer it in two different ways. The way I see it, everyone in the Bitcoin space should be interested in that report, because at the end of the day, Bitcoin adoption is done one interaction at a time, one student at a time. We're all educators, and we should all be focused on educating, teaching, showing the way to other people. So it's super important that we follow where Bitcoin education goes, where independent Bitcoin education goes. Now, realistically, this report will very much interest the people that already follow us in the Bitcoin community, and it will show them how we use the money that the community donates to us, which again is super important. We are a nonprofit. We live on donations. We need the community's support, and the least we can do is show the good that we're doing.
Yeah, cool. And I think like the impact report. So what we both are doing here is we're actually working on the very first press release in 2026. So this will include the impact report. But before jumping into the impact report, we should also briefly talk about events, because they will also be part of that press release, just to promote them a little bit before we jump into the impact report. And the impact report also reflects on events partially, but maybe or let me just point out what we are going to do in the event sector this year. So in a few weeks, on the 10th of June, we will have our own unconference in Prague, one day right before BTC Prague. We do that in collaboration with MITH, a partner from Slovakia and Honduras. It's a very interesting mixture, but yeah, they are very global. I had awesome conversations with Diana of the team together with Emilio. We will publish another podcast as well, I guess. And it's called the Educators Unconference. And at the Unconference, we will actually show for the very first time our documentary we filmed in Nairobi in the last 3 weeks, sorry. It will premiere there. It's actually that part of, and it now ties back into the impact report, it is actually showing the emotional side of our work. So how does it actually impact on a very, very personal and emotional level why people actually use Bitcoin education? How do they change their lives, their perspective? How do they generate hope? So everything that numbers actually can't show, right? This was the original conversation we had, Quentin, when deciding let's go and have a documentary, because there are limits to impact reports that you can actually show in numbers and text. So I'm stoked to show that, because I think what we captured there is absolutely unique. It hasn't been out there in the Bitcoin space whatsoever, but I don't want to say more. So come and have a look. You can actually get the tickets. We will link to Zeprite and Satlantis below this video or below this blog article. And we will also have the classic for people who don't know what the unconference is. So it's actually the audience is co-creating the event together with us. So we don't have many topics in the agenda that are fixed. We only have showing actually the documentary. And the other thing is that Benoit, our director of education technology, will explain what kind of crazy platform we are going to launch this year, right? And so these are the two fixed points, and the rest of the evening will be designed by people from the audience who can go up on stage and pitch a topic and say, for the last 3 months, I'm just totally obsessed with this or this topic. Who would like to discuss it with me? So we have the main stage where discussions can take place, but also breakout rooms. So it's a co-created event, let's put it that way. And from after discovering or experiencing it for the very first time in El Salvador, I felt you have way deeper conversations than you would ever be able in classic conferences. And it's actually, the event is evolving around the people. That being said, about Prague, we will have 2 additional events this year, at least. Maybe we'll update that. After Prague, there will be an event on the 22nd of August in Surabaya, Indonesia, which will follow a similar path, but it's not the same, but a similar path. Let's put it that way. And the other one will be in Colombia on the 12th of September. We will also link the events so you can check it out. And if you want to join, we are very happy. There was a very long promotion for the events. I'm sorry. Do you have anything to add or any questions about the event? Anything we should add?
Yeah. I think we're in a Bitcoin conference bear market. The incentives are wrong for Bitcoin conferences, maybe conferences in general, but at least Bitcoin conferences, where attendees pay a high ticket price for an event that is about selling them stuff. Of course, you go and see speakers on stage, but really most of the stuff that's happening behind the scenes is companies selling you and marketing their products. And that's why you see a lot of shitcoining happening. That's why you see a lot of custodial solutions and lending solutions and that kind of stuff, where it's about everything but empowerment at the end of the day. And I mean, that's a bit radical, but that's how I feel, especially this year, about conferences. In contrast, the Unconference is about education. It's about helping each other. It's about giving away what you know. It's about learning from other people, from other educators. It's about focusing on the thing that matters, which is getting more people to join the movement. And this is so important that we talk about that. Otherwise, Bitcoin will be captured. And the way we prevent that is by creating this very, very, very strong grassroots network of educators, of students, of Bitcoiners who discuss the right things. And in my opinion, the right things are about empowerment, about education, about speeding up the timeline, not number go up and yield and treasury companies and that kind of stuff. So that's why I think it's so important for people to know about the unconferences, because that's where the real signal is.
Yeah, I share that opinion. So let's wrap it up for the event section. I think this is enough promotion. We will also post on social media additionally. But yeah, the next event is 10th in Prague, 10th of June. You can get a ticket now. We're very happy and I'm very excited. And by the way, we will also film the next episode for the documentary in Prague. Also, maybe important to know. So let's jump into the impact report, Quentin. Can you just maybe summarize all the topics that are in there just with maybe a sentence or two, and then we dive deeper into them?
Sure, I'll do my best.
And just as a warning, it might happen that the mosque is starting a prayer in the next minutes. You never know. So if there is something screaming in the background, I would just mute myself.
Okay, sounds good. Cool. So just to frame the impact report, I would like to say that we decided to transition 2025 from teaching students in El Salvador to empowering educators worldwide. And what does it mean? It means that at some point in the future, the impact will be produced by the education network. It will not be produced by My First Bitcoin directly. Of course, we'll do a lot of stuff and we're going to be working really hard. But the stuff that we will produce will be educational content, and the infrastructure, the tech infrastructure for this content to be distributed all around the world in a decentralized, uncensorable manner, and in order to empower educators. So the real stuff, the real impact will come from these educators, these communities that do the very hard work of teaching their students locally in their own languages, in their own communities. So progressively, my feeling is we're going to transition from talking just about My First Bitcoin, as in what we do, to what we enable in the sense of what the educators do in terms of impact. And I can already see that in this first impact report for 2026. We are talking a lot about the education network and how it's growing. We're talking about the events that we're co-organizing with the communities out. We're highlighting some of the best, most impactful communities in the world. And only then we talk about our programs that are completely open source and that we share with the educators, and the educator training program that we deliver to the educators of the network as well, so that they can improve the way they teach their communities. So the way I see it, the more we'll continue working on empowering educators, the less we'll talk about My First Bitcoin itself, and the more we'll talk about all the achievements that all these educators all around the world are doing.
Makes sense. Yeah. So it's actually, there is a contradiction in what we're doing, right? So we're building a centralized organization to decentralize education. And people need to understand that. I think it's very weird. So at the same time, we need to centralize some parts, but on the other hand, we need to let go of a lot of things. And it's no easy job. Yeah, I hope this context helps people to understand like the struggle of trying to be very good as an organization. At the same time, it's not us doing the work that we want to portray here, right?
The way I see it, we're igniting and growing a movement. And this is super challenging, but if we're successful, it's going to be so rewarding for the Bitcoin network. Because at the end of the day, the Bitcoin network is the people that run nodes, the people that exchange value, the people that verify the code. It's the people. And we cannot centralize education. Otherwise, it will be captured, it will become fiat again, and we don't want that. So we need to ignite the movement and do it in such a way that at some point, it doesn't need us. My First Bitcoin needs to become irrelevant at some point. And that's our goal. We're not there yet, but it's coming.
And to be very sure, it's not us like centralizing it, right? This is what most organizations do, is they say the others don't provide the tools you need, but we do. And at the same time, this is what we need to let go, right? It's really, really, really tricky, but we want to decentralize it and we want to let it go, to let it be empowering people instead of like telling everyone what to do. But let's jump into the concrete topic. What's the first topic you want to start with?
So the report starts with the education network growing. This is the pulse of our whole mission. It's the education network. Everything we do is about the education network. Since the beginning of the year, we have 7 projects join the network, which is amazing. So we had one from Serbia, one from Nigeria, one from Ghana, one from Switzerland, Portugal, Colombia, and Nigeria. So really, really cool to see. They're very motivated to continue growing and to teach more and better. So this is really, really cool to see. We now have 83 communities in the network from 46 countries, and they're all independent projects. It's a very independent relationship. We're just providing them everything that we can so that they can teach. Yeah, sure.
So if I'm not mistaken, mathematics is surely no strong point for my personality. But if I got it right, I never thought about that. I heard that number several times, but it seems like we had like almost a 10% growth in the first quarter.
Yes.
Which is amazing. From my, yeah. Okay, just to get the numbers right. Yeah. Okay, I just came to that realization. Never had that before.
And we're just getting started, really, because the goal, and maybe I want to circle back to the idea of the movement, is how do we create a movement? Like literally, what is a movement? A movement is something that repeats itself and that grows and becomes more powerful at every cycle. At least that's how I look at it. So what we're trying to achieve here is we're trying to create a flywheel effect that we ignite, that we energy in, and then at some point takes a life of its own and just grows exponentially from there. That's why we have a very specific student journey that goes from pre-coiner to student to Bitcoiner to educator to community leader and to ambassador. And we close the loop with educators and community leaders and ambassadors teaching and attracting the new round of pre-coiners becoming students. And this is how we make this prophecy, a self-growing mechanism, a flywheel effect for this grassroots decentralized movement. That's what we, at every point in time when we're working at My First Bitcoin, we have this in mind. This is the core of what we're doing. This is the flywheel effect that we're trying to ignite. This is a chain reaction that we're trying to ignite.
Yeah, it's very, very well said. And or easier said than done, but very well said. We're working on executing on that. And but what we can see is like proportionally, like the growth accelerates, right? So we left El Salvador, and it was like a challenging time, or we in the process of leaving, let's put it that way. At the same time, we see where the team didn't grow much, right? We're trying to stay like a small team, to not like build this overhead of like 500 people. So there are not much more resources, but the growth just continues and accelerates, which is very interesting. So we're seeing that the philosophy behind that, we see that in action already.
Absolutely.
Okay, so great network growth. And what's the next topic? You said you want to talk about actually our community members, portraying them. So what is the next step in the impact report?
Yeah, so the next item, the following item, is the conference that we organized in Nairobi, Kenya, with the core, which was a huge success and a great way for some of our team members to just realize how much impact we have on the ground in these local communities, which is amazing. And I'm sure you can talk more about this event if you want to.
Yeah, sure. Like you said, I'm one of these team members, like seeing what we do in action. And there's a huge difference between like the first month I was sitting in Germany behind my laptop, like being really motivated, but not seeing like anything in action, which is very abstract to a certain point. And then going to Nairobi, meeting Felix, who will also be part, like in the next story, I guess, like as a portrait. He is the founder of the core. Seeing him, how he runs the event together with us, made like an amazing job, like branding it. But at the same time, if I'm not mistaken, we had like 200 graduates there, like from all ages. I guess the youngest was, I can just guess, but I would say something around like 14. And the oldest probably like 65. At the same time, what was amazing is what you almost never see in the Bitcoin space was always 50-50, almost 50-50 between men and women. I guess like 60-40, something like that, which is very amazing. The audience was very young, very motivated. I guess we had 520 tickets sold. This is what we had. I'm not 100% sure about how many people actually went. The last number when I talked with Felix was something between 460 and 480 in that rough area. Yeah, and even more important, what we did with the event, talking to the people, having one-on-one interviews. Like I said, we're doing or filming the documentary there with a lot of help and support from Felix, introducing us to the right people, and going to Kibera, which is one of the slums in Nairobi, was just an absolutely amazing experience. And to see the circular economies there and how big they actually are. So just talking about like one street in Kibera with over or almost 70 merchants, they are in the middle of actually like building something where they decouple from the state's money. So, and what the impact it had on me is let's say in the Western world, we tend to do a lot of philosophy, like how could adoption actually happen? Also me, I was thinking about like, yeah, which nation state, right, could adopt it like at the very beginning, and then game theory plays out. After visiting Kenya, it's like, forget about this. It's like, you could see like how it's going to go down. And I think it's local communities running circular economies using Bitcoin, decoupling from the state's money. And you could see that in action. I guess only by the time we were there were 3 new circular economies founded because of that conference. It's like huge. And they have like probably like 12 projects like this. And I think it's just outstanding how far Kenya is with actually adopting, why the Western world is thinking like, I don't think that Bitcoin actually is a good money. It's just a store of value. And for them, it's just like, no, it's the better money. This is why we use it. So it's really amazing and inspiring what people do with the education materials we provide. It's really, really cool. And that was a way longer answer than I planned. Sorry.
That's great, because what I would like to highlight in what you said is first world people tend to think about Bitcoin in very theoretical, very philosophical terms. And it's only when you go to these places that you realize that Bitcoin is actually a real thing that is actively being adopted. And these people need to learn about Bitcoin. They need to learn about self-sovereignty. They need to learn about financial independence, all these concepts. It's very abstract concepts from Occidental countries. There, it's a necessity that isn't being taught to them. That's why these independent educators are so important, and that's why we need to focus on them so hard.
Yeah, that's a very good summary. And yeah, it made me realize how important the collaboration between circular economies and Bitcoin education actually is. And to be honest, I didn't understand that when I joined your team. You were talking about that a lot. And I was like, I don't know, what does it mean like in action? And being there and realizing people build like micro economies where you just say like, okay, every single set that enters this community will never leave that community again, because you have enough vendors in that single street that you can actually buy everything and just let the sets circulate. I know that was mind-boggling for me because I've never seen that in that size, because Bitcoin Beach, for example, is way smaller, right, than the actual communities we saw there. And then you need a lot of imagination to say like, okay, I could actually buy shoes. I can buy all my groceries. I could go to a hairdresser. I could repair my car. So in Kibera in particular, you have everything. You can buy everything with sats. That's outstanding from my point of view.
That's the Bitcoin network. That's the social layer of the Bitcoin network. And it's so important that we grow it. Otherwise, Bitcoin will just stay this theoretical concept, this ideal. And these projects, these communities, these educators are making it tangible. They're reifying it. They're making it real, which again is so important to witness. And what we're going to show at Prague at the conference will be that. We'll show through the documentary how real Bitcoin is for many, many people all around the world, starting with Kenya.
Yeah. And maybe transitioning, because I guess Felix, the founder of the core, right, our main partner in Kenya, is also part of the impact report. Can you reflect on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Felix is our first ambassador. He is an amazing educator. He is relentless. He has taught 641 students. He enabled the birth of 6 new communities. We are at the 3rd generation of educators coming from Felix's teachings. So he taught Bitcoin Africa Story, he taught Destiny, and Destiny came to create Bitcoin Africa Story. And then Destiny taught new students, and these students started Bitcoin Flagship and Bitcoin Abyss. So that's the flywheel effect in motion. It is exactly what we're trying to achieve. Yeah. It's this exponential growth of educators, of students, of people that are empowered by independent education about Bitcoin. Now, the challenge is, how do we keep quality for generations? And that's what we're doing. As My First Bitcoin, we're making sure that this flywheel effect works, and it's not just fluff and words. But Felix is the best example of that flywheel effect. So we're highlighting him in the report. We're also highlighting Bitcoin Avis, which is one of the communities that joined this year and that comes from Felix's teachings. And we're also highlighting a project from Zambia called Bitcoin Victoria Falls. And they have been really, really hard at work. It has been co-founded by Humphrey and Adam. They graduated 272 students in 15 cohorts, which is huge. It's really hard to imagine the amount of work and energy going into doing that. And it's all for free. It's a nonprofit. It's pure empowerment. They've onboarded a ton of businesses there. They're really growing their community. And we wanted to highlight that, to show the world what's happening, what's really happening when you get out of the noise bubble and focus on the signal. And also show to other educators and community leaders what's possible and to encourage them to do the same. So these are the 3 highlights we're doing in the report for this issue.
And you were highlighting one thing, which is, again, while not trying to centralize things, how do you do quality control? It's really complex. And one of the things I think is the education material that we provide and that we continuously update. And I think a week ago, no, like 3 days ago, we released an update on the education material side. So this is also part, if I'm not mistaken, of the impact report, correct? Let me try to summarize what it is. So in the last month, the education technology team invested a lot into infrastructure. Benoit is working relentless on that level. For some people, I think it felt like, when is the next update coming? What is actually happening? It was like a lot of work happened behind the scenes. And I personally think we're now seeing only like the tip of the iceberg of what is going to happen this year. And one of the little tips of the iceberg is that we now have the introduction to Bitcoin course in over 40 languages. I guess it's 42, translated with the help of AI, which will also be able to improve with new processes through humans, right? So AI and humans actually collaborate on improving the overall quality. Additionally, and this is like, for me, it's mind-blowing because I've worked in the audio sector for the last 6 years. We also now provide audiobooks in 21 languages. For example, I hate reading. I almost never read. I listen to everything that I can. And especially, I think, like from a user's perspective, you could actually do the introduction to Bitcoin or also the diploma while commuting to work. This is the genius what's now happening because we invested into the infrastructure. So it's in 21 languages, I guess, as an audiobook. We will continuously improve that. Go into the Bitcoin diploma, also 40 plus languages. And also, I guess, the audiobooks we're also rolling out at the moment. Then we have the educators training program.
So the educator training program is a bit different because we don't have a PDF for it. It's a direct kind of education. It's our training the educators directly. It has a very specific outline and everything, but it isn't available as a PDF, at least for now. We'll see if there is demand for it.
So we actually switched. It was available as an online course before, and then we just realized the one-on-one interaction with and this is actually, from my point of view, a benefit. The interaction with our My First Bitcoin educators is very useful for the trainers to gain more insight, how to be like a better educator, become a better educator. So we offer it right now in Spanish and English, 2 languages for different time zones. So you can sign up. I guess what I will make is I will link the blog post for the education department update, right? Because this alone is so massive, and we recorded, I guess, like half an hour just on this update. So people who are interested can read like the very short summary, or they can watch an entire new episode just on the educational report, because it's so much. And this is why it's so heavy. Like your job to like summarize everything in, let's say, a tiny report or a very condensed report. I will link that. One thing that is very important for me to talk about with the education is Bitcoin for Juniors, right? There's like, especially the work of Pablo, which I think will also onboard way more people to join the movement, because it's actually teaching kids not literally Bitcoin, because it's a very abstract thing for them, but it's also talking about like, what is value, right? It's very interesting. So it's taking more like orientation in life and important questions to ask that will lay the foundation to later understand what the difference between fiat money and Bitcoin actually is, right? Very, very impressive. We could see the first reactions, which are awesome. Did I forget anything?
So just to summarize, maybe this release is the intermediary release for 2026. So what we released is really the proof of concept of the new system, of our new publishing system. We have to understand that the hard part about publishing programs in many languages is not just translating, it's designing, it's redesigning every time. And so what Benoit achieved is really incredible. I don't know many organizations that have done that before. He has created a way to both translate and redesign the program in as many languages as we want, which is, so we have the proof of concept, and we've released it for our 5 programs: Introduction to Bitcoin, Bitcoin for Juniors, Bitcoin Diploma, Bitcoin for Organizations, and then the Educator Guide for the Bitcoin Diploma. And then the next step will be to crowdsource proofreading for these translations, to continuously improve the translations via the people that actually speak the languages. So that's the next step, and a whole bunch of tech infrastructure to do just that. So it's coming, and it's coming in the October release, which is the big one every year. So that is most of the impact report. Then we share a few numbers about the educators training program. So we taught 19 educators. We trained 19 educators throughout the world for the first quarter, which is huge. We just shipped the new version of the program, and we are continuously improving it, refining it with the feedback that we receive from the network, which is amazing. So we talk a bit about that. We also highlight our top communities and the students that they've taught. And then we briefly mention our finances, where we are financially. We talk about what's coming next in terms of what we're shipping, especially at Prague with the second impact report and the end conference. And that's basically it for the report, really.
Yeah, and you said basically it. We're just talking for almost an hour now. So I think this is the best example to show like how dense it actually is, because once you poke into just one number, you need to go deeper to understand. But I think at the same time, it's very important to provide people with a report they can actually digest.
Yes.
Because there is so much happening, and from my point of view, it's some form of art of information design. This is how I would describe it, because to actually understand like everyday work of what we're doing over the course of 3 months is very complex. But so
Absolutely.
I think it's very necessary and beautiful. Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is just the public part of the roadmap. It's because there is so much more we're working on in terms of tech, in terms of admin, in terms of many aspects of the organization that might not be so interesting to highlight in a report, but that ensure that what we're highlighting in the report actually can work. I think, and maybe I'm biased, but I think the world is not bullish enough on my first Bitcoin, but it's coming. It's coming. We've just transitioned from local to global, and now we're just gaining traction, gaining speed, gaining momentum. And it's beautiful to see, because we're on a beautiful mission, and there is a lot to be done.
Yeah, and also because like being relatively new, that transition happened literally in December, right? This is where it was, let's say, ignited, November, December, something like that. Of course, there were like international partners already there in the network before, but this is when we actually started to accelerate. And I think like it's literally the first quarter where we talk about that. And I think it's amazing speed-wise.
Yeah, you're right. November, December, January was face melting, and
Face melting, that's great. Okay.
I think we all bear the scars of that acceleration, and I'm a bit responsible for it. But now we're on a cruising speed, and we're just doing so much, which is beautiful, and this is why the impact report is so important as me.
I think that are like very good last words. And thank you, Quentin, for your time. Thanks for sharing.